if they connect and bloom, oh, bloom. Showing if they connect and bloom.
Welcome to the Bloom Show. This is Saeed, and good afternoon. It's 3 p.m. here in Miami, Florida, and welcome to the special episode, Blooming Alerts, Tariff Edition. This is something new for me in the sense that we've been covering the tariff from different perspectives. And today we have CEO of Alver de Boore, my personal friend, Marco Groot. But what's interesting is literally 10 minutes ago, some news came out. I do want to preface this conversation as we're not sure what is happening within that world because there hasn't been an official announcement from the White House yet. So what we're about to talk is what we know, and we're almost in the same boat as everybody else that found out 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, and we're just doing our best to, one, continue to give perspectives from Holland, perspectives from supermarkets, but do your research, right? Do your research because it is confusing right now. And what's happening? Is it on the reciprocal? Is it on 10%? Marco and I are going to share what we've heard. Again, we ask you to do your own research and let time tell, right? And hopefully we could wait for an official announcement, and then I'll come out and hopefully post that on LinkedIn or something of nature. But we have heard through Reuters, we have heard through some allies here in the flower industry, certain things, and that's what we're going to share with you now is what we know to this moment. We're not a part of the government, so we're not speaking for the government. We're just sharing what we know as business owners ourselves and doing our best to inform you, and then speaking about the effects we believe it may have in the future if one, it was still implemented, or if it changed, either or. But what are the effects and how we could prepare for things like this and what 90 days means. So please help me welcome Marco Groot to our show. And I do want to formally thank him for being here, and also to thank you for watching, if you watch it live or watch it pre-recorded. All the shows I've been watching a bunch, and one thing that's really helping is that people are sharing it. So information is golden and powerful, but if you keep it to yourself, it's just yours. So do feel free to share our past episodes, not share about this one, but do share all the episodes with your customers, with your employees, with your community, because it is valuable information. With information comes unity and comes power. So without further ado, let me find the little screen thing. Here we go.
Showing if they connect and bloom, oh, bloom. Showing if they connect and bloom.
Sir, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. What do you mean you don't work for the government? If somebody knows what's going on, it's you.
Not the government, but I've been, in the last 10 minutes, I've been on 5 calls. You've been on a couple calls. So we're trying to get this information. But I do have to put out a disclaimer there that one, Marco is a very brave man for still being on the show. and two, that we are where everybody else is. And that's what a community is, right? So we know as much as everybody else does, and we're going to try our best to try to unravel this as we speak. And I have my phone next to me to maybe take some calls if someone calls us. But, you know, I usually have some questions for you, and I think we can go to them as well as what would happen if, right? Because we're as close to it as we've ever been in our industry, Marco, right? So we're as close to it as we've ever been to something really unprecedented that we've never really seen, and something that could affect our industry. So let's kind of catch everybody up real quick on what we've heard so far. So what we've heard is that the 10% tariff, that the 90-day is going to be only on reciprocal, which means anything over and above the 10%. That means that the 10% still stands, which means that 10% is still added. For example, Ecuador will still be 16.8. If there was more than 10%, like I'm assuming the 25% tariff on Holland and EU, that's now held to the 10% blanket tariff. So that means that Holland would be 16.8. Correct me if I'm wrong?
Correct.
Okay. Now, have you heard the same? Or what have you heard at the moment?
So the first thing I heard was the tariffs were off, period.
That's what I heard. Yes.
Yeah. So I went jumping upside down in my office, and I talked to people, and everybody was jumping upside down. Then actually you said to me, well, I read something from Reuters, and this says something different. So then I called a friend of mine who's a custom broker, and he confirmed what you actually said. And it's exactly like that. There is a 10% around the globe, plus what it already was. Except for China, they got like tariffed 1,800%. I mean, I'm kidding, but just with a lot. I have to be honest, yes, I'm still relieved compared to, the 20% plus the 6.8 that we already had. But I'm also a little less happy that it is actually still 10%. But I want to take some fear away, because there's a lot of misinformation that I've seen over this last week. And I've seen it in different social media groups, customers that reach out. And we were actually the first one to reach out last week with a statement to all of our clients on social media, by email, by saying, listen, this is not going to be a huge effect on you. It's not going to be devastating, because I've heard all kinds of terms like devastating to the industry. And I don't believe that for a second, but I will get to that, I'm sure, later. Yeah. But I want to make sure that people realize that it's not 20% on the bottom line. Well, now it's not. It's 10 plus 16, but plus 6. But it's not that number underneath your invoice. And if you have a whole invoice from us with everything that you bought that day, and let's say it comes down to $5,000, 20% up, and that's your extra, $1,000 in cost. It doesn't work like that. The tariffs are being calculated by the bare cost price of the product, in this case, the flour. So if the flour, I hate to say it, because the flour is the main thing of what we ship, right? And it's the main thing of what the customers would like from us. But in terms of value, it is not the biggest value of what you, that's the freight component. That is the conversion to the dollar. Mm-hmm. That is some other logistic costs. That's the clearance that we have. So in other words, if a tulip is 30 cents buying cost, like in Holland, then it's that amount of tariff on that 30 cents and not on the 75 cents that we were charging you because of the freight and the duty. Blah, blah, blah. So it's less painful and harmful as a lot of people maybe thought. And just to give you an example, I was speaking to a friend of mine early this morning, and he said, Marco, I bought my first roses with the full tariff on from Ecuador. Roses were 2 cents more. That was it. So it's, and don't forget, and I don't want to play this down at all. Like, listen, we are in an industry that it is hard to make a very healthy margin throughout the whole
business. Yeah.
Grower, shipper, wholesaler, designer, retailer. It's difficult to make all your margin because we have a product that melts. Like at the end of the day, you always have a certain percentage that you have to throw out. You sell shoes, you don't have that as much. So it's a very difficult business, and I get it. Every percent that is going off your bottom line is worrisome, but it isn't as bad as people maybe were afraid of. And also, listen, throughout the years, you've been in the industry for like a gazillion years. You've been through the fact that there were times that we had in Ecuador, zero duties. And then all of a sudden, it became a little less than 7. And the whole world was like, oh, this is going to be, Africa is going to be the new, Ecuador. And they don't have tariffs. And we didn't sell a single rose less. After a week, everybody was adapt to it, build it in the margin. And there was another very historic thing in the floral industry that happened. I'm not even talking about COVID. That's a whole separate issue. years and years and years and years ago, our freight got calculated by dimensions. By weight. And when it was by weight, we knew exactly like a box isn't like 20 kilograms. It's 17 or it's 16. And then the airlines started to become smart and they were doing dimensional weight, volume weight, so to speak. That made everything more expensive. And in the industry, we were like, oh my gosh. And it worked out. In other words, we're like water. We'll float and we'll survive. 100%. We are a resilient business. And I've been a little held back to really go out much on social media to talk about this, because I did see all the colleagues do it. And in a way, listen, good for everybody the way they do. Everybody's got to do what they need to do, want to do. But I felt like we were all too down about it. Too down. Like it's stand up, chin up, and let's go. And yes, it's going to be, it sucks for a while. We'll eat it up. We at COVID, the world stopped. Yeah. The world that's behind you, that spins, it stopped. And we're still sitting here. And all of us do better now than before of COVID, because our industry is stronger. Yeah. So anyway, it sucks, but we just have to deal with it.
Well said.
Yeah. Anyway, so okay, I'm on a rant. Sorry, buddy.
No, man. No, I'm not cutting you off. It's very well said, because I've had that feeling with interviewing so many people. I've had the feeling that we're gonna get through this because it's almost as gonna be absorbed by us, right? And we're so resilient as an industry that we're just gonna make it happen. And people are maybe gonna notice, like you said, 2 cents on a bunch. What is that? For a 12-cent bunch, they might not even really see the effect of that. So we're really at the point that we do need the skies to clear and to understand where we're at, especially with this scare, this thing, not scare, it's a good thing, but we're not sure because it's not very clear. There hasn't been an official announcement from the White House, I believe, yet, from what I've spoken to a couple people. But when it comes down to it, you are right. Because with COVID, we made it through and we did better numbers. With 2008, we survived that. With Russia not able to taking shipments, we figured it out. So it's always a way to rebound. And I truly appreciate your message, because it's like, okay, look, we've got the situation. We're going to deal with it now, and we're going to not even notice it in the next couple of months. And we'll see what Mother's Day. And I think getting through Mother's Day, that'll be a hump. Because some companies are accepting it, some aren't, so there is some wholesalers that have said, we're not touching that. You deal with it, right? There's farms that are doing this, so et cetera, but it's about this first shell shock. And I think that we're all shell shocked, and not only shell shocked, we're confused, especially now.
Confused is the right word. And listen, about Mother's Day, right? And so last week, Thursday, I was in Ecuador and with my dear colleague, and this broke, right? So what do you got to do? You got to talk with everybody in your company, and we got really good people, to calculate on the back end. What does this mean, etc. So I stayed in my hotel room the whole day just to make sure that like everybody's on the same page, that we do what we need to do. But the first thing we said, and it's in our statement too. And like I said, we were the first to put it out there. Like, listen, customer, it's Mother's Day, and that's crunch time for all of us. For us, it's always a guessing game. Yeah. Like, we really don't know how many peonies we're going to get in Italy, Spain, Portugal, you name it. And we really don't know if they're going to be $3.75. We really don't know, but we try to do is. So we can, because the numbers are so big during that time, we can lose a lot of money. And just like any other business, we need to be healthy during the holidays in order to survive other months. But my point is, something like this happens, what you're not going to do as a company is say, customers, we're going to take care of ourselves. That's it. So all of you, your pre-books, whatever you booked, 20%. like it doesn't work that way. Our customers are with us 20, sorry, I was going to say 20 plus years, but actually a lot of them are, but 12 months out of the year. 12 months out of the year. Like, we get sticker shocked. Listen, we'll eat what we can in order for you to maintain your business as good as you can. And we worry about all of that later. Like, we have to raise our prices a little bit. How much? We don't know. We have to calculate that. But don't worry about your Mother's Day pre-book. We'll take care of you. We're a business partner. Right. If they do well, we do well. Yeah. And that's the end of it.
And it's a long-term investment as well. Sylvie, which is a representative, Sylvie, right?
I do not know Sylvie.
Okay, so Sylvie. Sylvie is the president of the Association of Europe for the Flower Association. I don't know the name quite yet. Unifleur, I believe it's called. So she's saying, let's see how it turns out and how the game will keep playing. For now, it's a 90-day pause. The EU has just adopted today its list of retaliatory measures due to be announced tomorrow. Agreed, though, that the industry needs to keep its chin up. Sylvie, if you're still hanging out, do you know if the 10% is still included on top of what already existed for countries like Holland? It would be great to get your insight, since I know you're keeping your thumb on the pulse. I did get an email from John, which is the government relations with IFPA with the U.S. government. So his role is U.S. government relations, and he just sent me an email. Let me see it here real quick.
You got people in high places, buddy.
I figured it out. We got to figure it out. You have to be resourceful. The president's announcement removes the reciprocal tariffs, which that's what we're trying to define, placed on 50 to 60 countries. I think the number is about 57, he says. The 10% across the board tariff remains in place. And the president has increased the tariffs on China to 125. So that's from a person that works with, and his job is to work with the government, right? So what does that mean? That means, from what I understand, again, do your own research. Going back to what I said in the beginning, it's 10% on top of what already existed, like Marco had said. So 10% on Colombia, it's 10%. 10% on Ecuador, it's 16.8. And now Holland goes down from a 25 to a 16, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that where we go. I understand that the 10% tariff baseline is to be maintained for all countries. Now, we verified this with a few people, because I got a call from also, we're awesome. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? So Sylvie's also stating, but again, she's saying, I understand, because the news is coming in as it comes in, which could be, it's exciting, it's fun, but we want to make sure that everybody else is doing the research.
You know what it is, and not to get political in any means, like that. This is not the show for that, but it's just in the past we also had some regulations that we really weren't sure, what were the rules. This one, for example, I'll give you an example. Like we're a big company. We grow all around the world. We ship directly to the States, but we also ship from other countries to Europe, ship it back to the States. It happens. So, for example, pussy willow. We grow that in China. We get it from China. Now, if we ship that to Holland, ship it back to the States, does that mean it's like, that 185%, whatever they have? Or is that because it's shipped from Europe, it's the 10 plus 6.4? Nobody knows. That's the thing. It's so hard to run a serious business. And we are a serious business, right? It's so hard to run a serious business on so many unknown facts. It's mind-blowing, to be honest.
And I just got a call, I won't mention names, of someone pretty important. It's like, what happened? Oh my goodness, how can you run a business like that? So you're right. And you're a CEO, and it is very hard to run a business. But again, I go back to, it almost feels like COVID again, where we're like, where's the information? Where is it coming from? Who's taking it? What do we do? But as you said from the beginning, and you covered all my questions and what you stated, is you don't feel, because one of the questions, do you foresee U.S. buyers reducing orders from Holland and turning to other countries?
No.
You don't see that.
What I do see, listen, there's a couple of things that we all should realize as an industry, right? If you're in the mass market business, it's high volume, low margin. So that means that any percentages on top of what was already existing is eating a margin that is almost not there. So in other words, the difficulty, the good thing is the bulb season in Holland is almost over, right? Like the hyacinths, the daffodils, the tulips. So, but what do you do for next year? Because in August and September, that's when we know how many bulbs survived, basically survived, how many bulbs were created, how many bulbs we can still grow for the year after, and what the price is going to be. We knew, for example, that this growing year, it was a little tough because we lost like 20 to 25% of our crop due to excessive rain. So in other words, you know that information when you dig the bulbs up in August, right?
Okay.
So in September, that's when companies start to make new programs with, the mass market. So the contingency should be, maybe there is a tariff, maybe there's not. But for supermarkets, it's difficult too, because, are they going to reserve the space for flowers, or are they going to reserve the space for, I don't know, other things than flowers? So that is one component that's very difficult. Now, the other component, wedding and events, retail market, again, the extra tariff on the cost of the product is not going to affect it that much, price-wise. I just don't see that we will miss weddings, that we will miss retail sales. What I do expect to see, I already see it a little bit, is that right now there's so much uncertainty, right? It's the stock market, you name it, that people in general wait with spending money. Has nothing to do with that the flowers are more expensive. Has to do with the whole consumer feeling. Yes. And that'll settle down too. Yeah. It always will. It may take a little bit longer, but it'll settle down. It's not that they will let the flowers stay in the store and spend it on a glass of wine, on a bottle of wine. I don't see that. I really see that the industry will be just as successful as soon as the consumer feels confident, sure again to spend money.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we're at now. We're all a little, nervous and not sure what happened. And the stock market the stock market just went up a bunch of points just now, I think 6%, which is pretty impressive how it goes down and then just shoots back up. It's pretty crazy. I think it was the largest growth since 2020.
And yesterday morning, we started with a bear market. So you tell me, it's just crazy.
It's fun. So they said it would be fun. So Sylvie is chiming in. Thank you, Sylvie. Again, you've been watching all the shows. Really means a lot. Additional reciprocal tariffs on China are maintained because China has retaliated, as I understand it. That's why I was mentioning that EU was just ready to announce a retaliation tomorrow. Let's see if they will now hold off with the latest announcement on the U.S. side. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Sylvie. Again, I have to disclaimer this. These are just our thoughts because we're not the government. So we're just getting what we can as public and sharing it as much as possible. So
Good info.
Marco, so man, thank you for being on the show. I had a bunch of questions, but those are kind of out the window now. Go for it.
Can I tell you one thing?
Always.
So there is a little bit of disconnect sometimes on and this goes especially for Holland. I want to give a shout out to a grower. His name is Steve. He's from Ansu, and Ansu used to be Anko. The whole world knew him as Anko, and then a couple of years ago he changed it because he had different partners, and it was Ansu. The guy is a magician when it comes to growing vendas, and he had a very unfortunate event happen to him, I think about 10 days ago, and it was that there was a power outage in his greenhouse, and I don't know the details or whatever I know. I don't want to share too much in details, but basically what happened is he lost a very big part of his crop, very big part of his crop,
Wow.
which this is also for him crunch time. Mother's Day, April, May, June, big months for Vendas. And but why I want to give a shout out is, first of all, he's gonna replant. He already ordered like a lot of stock plants from Taiwan, and so that's going to happen. But there's two things why I mention this. The first thing is he has still a few Vendas left that survived, but it's a minimal percentage. So what happens is, on the price list from all your Dutch vendors, all of a sudden you see, and I'm exaggerating, but you see Vendas now for $20 instead of $10.
Yeah.
Just saying something. That is not because of the tariffs. That is because of the unfortunate things that happened to him. Now, the other thing, so I just wanted to explain that difference, because Dutch Vendas is something that is in high demand, and people, compare prices because they are expensive. The other thing is, my colleague Sander was talking to him today, and Steve was very worried that I made such a big investment in shipping new plants all the way from Asia to grow. It's a huge investment. Will people still like my Vendas after all of this happened? And I don't know if you will see this, but I can guarantee you that everybody loves his Vendas. So whenever Mother's Day is done, he does what he does to recover as much as he can, but it is going to be tough. But by the end of the summer, he should be back in a normal routine. The prices should be back to normal then, because the availability is back to normal. And this guy can recover with this beautiful product. So I just wanted to give that little context there.
No, there's a chain reaction to everything. So thank you for sharing, and I wish him the best, man. Poor guy. And growers are so resilient. They bounce back, man, and he's gonna keep on moving. So thank you for sharing. I have a question here from Sylvie. Are exchange rates ultimately not having a greater impact than actual tariff duties?
Very good point, Sylvie. If you look at the last 3 days, the dollar became weaker and weaker and weaker, and a weaker dollar means it's more expensive to import products. So currently, with the 10% as it is, the dollar has more effect on the price than the actual tariff. You're right about that. And the downside of this is that the dollar goes over the whole value of the flour, the freight, the clearance, and the tariff only goes over the flour. So you have a very good point there. Also, I do expect that markets will calm down. Clearer heads will prevail. Is that how you say that? And it'll be okay. It'll be okay. But we have to watch it for sure. The global markets are hot right now. Nobody really knows what to expect. So currency is definitely a big factor.
I appreciate that, Sylvie. Thank you for asking those questions. And Marco, thank you. And Sylvie, you just gave me a great question to ask Charlie Hall on Monday. So thank you for that, to get a better understanding. And hopefully by Monday, the dust may have settled, or maybe there's another dust ball. We don't know, but we'll find out by then. But Marco, thank you so much for having that positive energy, man. Being open and being brave enough to still join me, knowing that we weren't sure or not sure of what's happening, but we, as the Bloom Show and Bloom Media, will keep everybody updated as much as we can. So we might have a show tomorrow if we find out some information, and then go from there. But Marco, thank you so much for your time, man.
Anything for you, always. I love how you keep the business, the whole industry, always up to date. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. And you have one last one from Sylvie. Thank you so much, Marco.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, my man. Appreciate you. Thank you. So that was exciting, in the sense that, again, Marco and I, we said, hey, let's get together a little earlier because we're not sure what's happening. And then we were making phone calls. And as the show was happening, we're getting phone calls too. But again, I do want to say the disclaimer is that we are hearing from many people that the 10% tariff is staying, that it is across the board, and that it just added on top of what used to be. But do your own research. Do follow on LinkedIn, as I will be posting anything that I find that confirms that. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be getting some phone calls from people that we spoke to validate and verify everything that we're saying at the moment. And the minute that we hear, we'll let you know. So again, thank you everybody for joining the show. Do join us. I believe it's Monday. Do join us on Monday, as we'll have Charlie Hall on, and hopefully by then we'll have a little bit more perspective on what's going down and a more of a clarity, and also answering questions like that. You know, with the dollar devaluation, is that more important than what we're looking at now, or how is that as a double effect? So hopefully we'll get some more clarity on that as well. So thank you everybody for the past week for joining. Thank you, Marco, as always, for joining, man. I asked you yesterday, you said yes and jumped on. So I appreciate you, and thank you everybody else for supporting and sharing the Bloom Show. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and make a comment. Take care.
The bloom, showing if they connect and bloom. The bloom, showing if they connect and bloom.
You're a legend.